actually, this lesson was two lessons because I actually taught it to the teen girls during fall retreat, and I needed so y'all get 2 days worth of information in one night. So, right? No, I got it down to one. And it's 6 pages, but don't worry, it won't take me very long at all to get through that. Um, so a few months ago, and I say a few months ago, it was actually like last summer. It was during second service, and y'all think I might be real spiritual staying for both services, but really, I just go down to Jackson and Alyssa's office and I sit there and scroll TikTok. Um, so that this one Sunday morning during second service, I was scrolling TikTok and I came across a video of a lady who was talking about her devotion that she had done that morning. And from there, I went down a rabbit hole and this whole lesson was born. And it came from two words that she said, and that was broken pieces. So think about these words I'm about to say: broken, smashed, shattered, fragmented, damaged, cracked, defeated, beaten, and overwhelmed. Those are all synonyms for the word broken. The definition of broken is having been fractured or damaged and no longer in one piece or in working order. And if a person is broken, it means having given up all hope and despairing. Have you ever been broken? I have, more times than I want to count. And brokenness comes in many different forms. When I was in junior high and high school, I remember being betrayed by friends, people that were supposed to be, one day they were your best friend, and then the next day they were talking about you behind your back and being cruel. And even more recently, I remember people that were supposed to be my mentors and leaders. They were supposed to be there to support me, and instead, they tore me down. And that really hurt. And that's the thing with people. When it comes down to it, that's what they are. They're people. And people make mistakes and they're going to mess up and they're going to hurt you. They're very people-y. And then there have been times when I have been broken that has absolutely nothing to do with what people have done to me. Just a couple of years ago, I was mentally, physically, and spiritually broken when Bethany was going through heart failure. It was one of the worst times in my life. I felt like I was going to lose her, and we came pretty close, I think. And I would just sit for hours, and I would pray, and I would beg God for healing for Bethany. But there was nothing that I could do other than pray and research and make appointments to get her to doctors, and I could help her that way. But in the end, it was only God that could give her her healing. And praise God, he gets all the glory for her healing. And, those are just a few times that stand out to me about being broken. And you all know being broken is no fun. So why does God make us go through times of brokenness? And I want to say, when I did this lesson for the teenagers, they had to come fix the dishwasher at the cabin. And so just so happened the dishwasher repairman was there while I was teaching. And I asked the girls, why do you think God allows us to be broken? And they all just sat there and looked at me. And all of a sudden, back behind this cabinet, you see this hand go up in the air. And I'm like, yeah? He goes, well, sometimes he just wants you to be broken so he can direct you somewhere else. I'm like, that's very good. That was one of my points. So the dishwasher repairman even got a little something out of my lesson. So why do you think God has us go through times of brokenness? I'm going to name off several. I just want to see what y'all say. So we can call the repairman. Yes. Right. So, yes. You might be wondering, does he even love me enough because he makes these bad things happen? Or there may, there's a lot of answers to that question. But many times I know in my life, God has used times of brokenness to draw me closer to him. Other times he's used it to get my attention because he had something better in store for me and had a new assignment for me. But each time God allowed me to go through a time of brokenness, I came out stronger on the other side. And here's the best part: God doesn't throw away broken things, he restores them, he redeems them, and he uses them for his glory. Now, have you ever heard the term kintsugi? It means golden joinery. And it's the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with lacquer that's mixed with gold or silver or platinum. And in kintsugi, I didn't read the last word. Instead of hiding the cracks, they highlight them. They turn the brokenness into something more beautiful and unique. It embraces the imperfections, and each repaired piece tells a story. And it shows that breakage and repair are part of its history and not something to disguise. So I wanted to buy a piece of the kintsugi pottery. So I thought, I can look on Amazon, but it's too expensive and out of my budget. But I could afford the kintsugi repair kit. So I made my own. So first, I want us to look at this bowl. It is perfect. There are no imperfections in it. It can be used for the purpose that it was intended to be used. For me, I would probably put queso in it, need some chips and dip. Be good, I'm hungry. Um, so that's probably what I would use that for. Now, look at this bowl. Yes, that is a bowl. It came out of the same package, but it's broken, it's chipped, and I know it's missing pieces because I didn't sweep up all of them and put them in this bag. It cannot be used for what it was intended. I cannot put queso in this bowl, otherwise I'm going to have a mess. It might burn me. So we can't do that. But then this bowl, it came out of the same package. But I got to break it too. That was fun. I got to use my kintsugi repair kit on it. Now, did I find all the little bitty pieces? No. But I did find the important ones, and I put it back together, and it's even more beautiful. Now, you do notice this is harder than it looks, a lot harder. And I did make little smudges, and you can see my fingerprints on it where I would get it on me. But when I was doing this lesson for the ladies one Tuesday, someone brought it, and I think it was Brenda. She said, but if you use that in your life and you see the fingerprints on it, that's like seeing God's fingerprints on you too. And that I thought about that a lot. But I love how there's a contrast between the gold and the black. It just makes it more pretty. Now, it's not perfect, but it is unique. And I could use it still. I could put queso in there, and it's not going to hurt me. Now, we live in a world where broken things are often discarded, like broken plates or bowls. We throw away broken promises. Sometimes we even throw away broken lives. But God doesn't throw away what's been cracked or shattered. Instead, he restores us, and his healing presence fills the very places of our deepest wounds. And kintsugi is a metaphor for healing. And you can see the beauty not despite of, but because of the brokenness. And there's such a beautiful connection between kintsugi and how God uses brokenness. And all throughout Scripture, God shows us that He doesn't discard what's broken. Remember, He redeems it, He restores it, and makes it even more beautiful. So, how does God use broken things? Well, one of the first places I found it was He uses brokenness to bring blessing. In Mark 14:3 through 9, we read the story of a woman breaking the alabaster jar and pouring the expensive perfume on Jesus and anointing him. Now, to most people there, they just thought she was wasting that expensive perfume. But when that jar was broken and the fragrance was released, it was a blessing to all that were there. And for this woman, it was actually an act of worship, and that we still remember today. And sometimes what seems ruined is actually being poured out for God's glory. The second one is brokenness makes us usable. Matthew 14:19, which is the verse that I read the day that started this whole lesson. It's talking about when Jesus used the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish to feed the 5,000. Remember, it wasn't just 5,000 total. That was just the men. They didn't count all the women and children. But Jesus broke the bread and the fish before he multiplied it. Now, this was Jesus. So he could have multiplied the bread and the fish without breaking them. But he wanted to emphasize that he can do great things when things are broken. So our lives, when they're broken and surrendered to him, become nourishment and blessing for others. A third way God uses brokenness is it leads us to dependence on God. Paul talks about his thorn in the flesh in 2 Corinthians 12:7. And it was a weakness for him. But it was this weakness that became the stage for God's strength to be showcased. 2 Corinthians 12:9 and 10 says, "My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I'm strong." So when what may feel like limitations to you can actually be there to showcase God's power and God's strength. God's strength shines brightest then. The fourth way God uses brokenness is that broken hearts invite God's nearness. Psalms 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he rescues those whose spirits are crushed." God's presence often feels closest in seasons of heartache. The night that my dad died, my heart was most definitely broken. Here I was, stuck on Interstate 40 at 275 miles from home. I know that because the 275-mile marker was right there in front of us. And we weren't able to move for 9 hours because of an ice storm that had come through, and there were semis jackknifed in front of us. So for 9 long hours, we sat there. And in those dark, lonely hours, no, I was not alone. Jason and the kids were there, but they were asleep. I could not sleep. God was there too, and he comforted me and helped my broken heart. I was heartbroken that I couldn't be there to tell him goodbye. But in those wee hours, God spoke to my spirit, and he told me why he had me so far away when my dad passed away. God saw the big picture, and he knew that I would not be able to physically handle it if I were there. So instead, he wrapped his loving arms around me and comforted me right there on that icy interstate. The fifth way God uses brokenness is it's part of transformation. Like in kintsugi pottery, God doesn't erase the scars. No, he redeems them. He makes them a radiant testimony of his grace. And the cracks in our lives become the places where His light shines through. Like the gold in the pottery makes it more beautiful, God in our scars makes them more beautiful. In God's hands, brokenness is not the end, it's the beginning of beauty. And then the final way that I found that God uses brokenness is it ultimately brought salvation. Jesus knows what it's like to be broken. His body was beaten, bruised, and broken so that we can be saved. And it is because of his brokenness that we can one day live with him in heaven. And then that leads us to scars and the healing process. Every scar tells a story of his grace. Every crack becomes a line of gold that points to his glory. And what once felt like ruin will become a testimony. We talk about how God takes broken things and makes them whole again and even more beautiful. And God's healing is kind of like the kintsugi pottery. It's never the exact same as it was before, but it has been mended and healed. And those scars tell the story. And like I said before, kintsugi is like a metaphor for healing. And you can see the beauty not despite of, but because of brokenness. And during the healing process, scars develop. I have a lot of scars. On this thumb, I have a scar from where I was cooking dinner for those little kiddos down the street, and I was cleaning up and accidentally filleted my thumb open. And then on this thumb, right in the little fold right there, I have a scar from where I used my little sourdough scoring knife, and it slipped and it cut me open. And then I have a scar here from a curling iron, and scar here from touching a 500-degree stoneware baking dish. And then I have a scar over here from a waffle iron. And this all happened like in the last year or so. And then there's scars on my hands from where I accidentally cut myself when I'm supposed to be paying attention when I'm cutting hair. I know what you're thinking. I need to pay closer attention, and I know that. Jana even got me long oven mitts so I won't burn myself anymore. Now, I do pay closer attention now. And then I have other scars. I have a scar from where I had a C-section when I had Jackson. I have scars on my belly from where I had my gallbladder removed. But all those scars have a story behind them. And all your scars have a story behind them. But here's the thing with wounds and broken pieces. They don't make the thing unusable. But it does take time to heal. Like when I cut my fingers, I still have all my fingers. I just have to wait for them to heal so they don't keep breaking open again. But I still use them. And when I repaired this broken bowl, I didn't just put the adhesive on there and it was ready to use right then. I had to put the adhesive on there and hold the pieces together for a few minutes until it took hold. And then after I got them all together, I couldn't use the bowl for 24 hours. It had to sit there and let the adhesive cure. And it's the same with us. Healing takes time. And it's when we've been broken, it takes time for that healing to take place. It could take a short time, or it could take years to heal. Either way, your healing is in progress. And then there will be scars there that are going to tell your story. And it's going to be a reminder of how far God has brought you and has healed you. And there's a testimony in your scars. You may be wondering how healing happens and when it begins. And that's what we're going to talk about now. First, we have to remember that God is close to the brokenhearted. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit, which is Psalms 34:18. God doesn't abandon the broken. It's actually the exact opposite. He is so close to us when we're broken. Have you ever had times when you felt God's closeness during those hard times? I have. And Jesus is on the mission to heal the brokenhearted. In the Old Testament, Isaiah 61:1 says, He sent me to comfort the brokenhearted. And it was so important that they restated it again in the New Testament in Luke 4:18. Says the exact same thing. He sent me to comfort the brokenhearted. And all you have to do is invite Jesus into the broken areas of your life and accept his healing. Invite him into your hurt. Be honest with him. He knows it anyway. You might as well just tell him, this hurt me and I'm broken. And let him come in and start healing those hurts. You want to spend more time with God. This can be through prayer. When I was talking to the girls at Fall Retreat, you don't have to have fancy words. Just talk to him like you talk to everybody else. Tell him what's hurting you. I like to write down my prayers. Not only does it help me just get it out of my system to write it down, but it also serves as a reminder of what I've asked God for. And then I can go back later and read them, and I can see how God has answered that prayer. It may be good. And he may have said yes and healed it the way I asked him to. It could be no. A lot of times it's no because he knows a lot better than I do. But I can see how he's answered that prayer. And I can see how far he's brought me and how he's healed me. And also spending time in the Word. Let his words be that healing ointment on your wounds. Spend time in worship. And when you worship, it's not physically possible to worry. So if part of your hurts brings you lots of worry, turn on your worship music. And I know your worship music may not be the same type of worship music that I like. Just make sure it edifies God. And God is in the healing business. He doesn't just heal our diseases, he heals our brokenness. Psalm 147:3 says he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Do you have some wounds or brokenness that you need God to heal right now? Just let him know what it is. And Isaiah 53:5 promises that by his wounds we are healed. Jesus' suffering and sacrifice open the way for our healing and wholeness. And honor your scars. Like the gold in the kintsugi makes the bowl more beautiful, our scars make our stories more beautiful. So don't think of your scars with shame. Actually think about them with reverence. Because you aren't damaged, you're changed. And that's sacred. Choose the beauty that is in the mending. Kintsugi doesn't just fix the brokenness, it beautifies it. It's a choice to add gold and not glue. It makes the broken places radiant. And as you heal, ask God what can add beauty to this chapter. Could it be new boundaries? Could it be just a deeper connection with God? And then accept that you're different now. This bowl is never going to be the same. It's never going to be how it looked before. But it can still be used, and it can still shine, and so can you. Healing doesn't mean returning to who you were. It means becoming someone more whole, with strength and wisdom and even a little softness. Share your story. Kintsugi pieces are often displayed proudly and very expensive. The smallest little bowl that I found on Amazon was like $200. Hence the reason I bought the $14 repair kit. Yes. Sharing your story can help others. Your story is filled with gold where God has put your broken pieces back together. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says it perfectly. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Brokenness can become a testimony of God's strength and grace. And when I think about my scars from my times of being broken, I can see God's handiwork all over it. When I was hurt by my leaders and mentors, God used that time to make me stronger. He moved me away from hurtful situation into a place with people that are some of my best friends and leaders now. And he used that time to speak to my soul and my spirit and cause me to lean more on him. And when I think about the night that my dad passed away, I was broken because he's gone, and I can't talk to him anymore. I can't just call him up and ask for his advice. He can't be here to see how my kids are doing and all that they've achieved. But I know he's in a better place. He's not in pain anymore, and he's not dealing with constant health issues. And God had me 275 miles away when he passed away because he cared about me. He cared enough to know that I could not physically handle seeing my dad pass from this life. I had already done that with Jason's dad, and it actually caused a lot of PTSD and anxiety issues that I've dealt with for a long time. So God was looking out for me that night. And when I look back on Bethany going through heart failure, I can see God's hand on her the entire time. It was totally out of my control, and I was broken. But I was able to lean on him and see that he was in total control, and he healed her. She's down there with all those kids who've been stuck inside for 2 weeks, having fun with them. So God really healed her. And you may not be able to see God in the midst of your brokenness, but just lean on him and trust in him even when you can't see. So when your brokenness is healed and you're able to look back and you can see God's hands the entire time. And sharing your story of healing can encourage others during their time of brokenness. And it's all a testimony of God's strength and grace. And in the end, know that your wholeness is going to look different. When your healing is complete, it's going to include some cracks and tender places and some gleaming lines of gold. And that doesn't make you broken, it makes you beautiful. And being broken is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of a beautiful new chapter. And we all have broken pieces, and God uses our broken pieces and puts them back together in ways that only he can. And he solidifies them in his refining fire and molds us into what he knows we can be. He makes us the perfect vessel that he can work through and use. Your brokenness isn't the end of your story. It's often the place where his story in you begins, because he's the master artist. He isn't afraid of your broken pieces. In fact, those are the very places where his light shines through, where his love pours in, and where your story of redemption is written.